Alright, here I am, Pseudosphere here, and I'm going to cast this game, three games actually, between Ranma and ES, and kind of trying to get a hang of casting, so definitely let me know what you think of it, and we'll see how this goes. So let's jump right in. Oh yeah, and I'm sure the intro showed this, but for audio purposes, this is the Garudan XIV Finals. Casting this a bit late, just haven't really had time to get around to it. So right off the bat we can see it's red-yellow burn versus green-yellow sack. Ranma opening forest gives him an option to use Earthcraft if he wants to, and he opts not to. Let's actually turn this down a little bit more even. I did test the audio beforehand, so it should be decent, but it's a little bit distorted, so. Ranma, considering Earthcraft, would leave him with 4 mana. Considering it for quite a while. Not really sure what he's thinking. We'll just wait and see. Looks like he chooses a desert and places it on the opposite side. So here he's setting up collection. Now ES has to pick a side here. Chooses to go away from where Ranma's creatures are currently, though Ranma being sack will most likely be expanding on both sides. So both players so far really just setting up a solid early game collection. Nothing crazy happening turn 2. Turn 3 now. Options are starting to open up for both players. You can see a lot of thought going into every single move. Even something that might seem small, like placing a land. And I say seems small because I'm sure many of you know where you place your land is critical in a game of Faria. Even more so as a sack deck. Looks like he was thinking about playing Spirit of Rebirth, but decides not to. Probably in case there's some sort of Flame Burst in ES hand. ES playing a desert. At this point, Ranma most likely knows that it's red-yellow burn. Two mountains is likely some burn, especially with a burn creature. Desert definitely opens or closes closes the door on the number of options available here. You can see in ES hand he's got Kaleem's training and Flashwind, so probably looking to make some plays going forward here on this next turn, the infamous turn 4. Ranma plays Spirit. I think he expects some creatures to die this turn, so hoping to get some buffs off of that. Yes has 11 Faria. And it looks like he's going to go for a movement play. And he opens himself up to removal, but takes a very strong step towards the end goal of red yellow burn. Dealing 8 damage before you put down a Spectre is quite favorable, and given the current board state, it looks like he's hoping to get another 4 to 5, or excuse me, 4 to 6 for 2 to 3 hits on that. Now Ranma pulls a Shamanic Dance from that Bloom Sprite, and an Assassin as well. So this is actually quite favorable for Ranma, or I wouldn't say favorable, I would say it's going to help him out. It's going to turn what looked like another 8 damage to face into just 2 damage. Taking another 8 damage against a burn deck this early in the match is a pretty rough to come back from. Yes, pulling some good draws. Red Yellow Burn has trouble getting enough creatures, although I would need to check ES deck specifically to know exactly. I know some burn decks don't run Ground Shaker. He draws, digging for something. I would say digging for Last Nightmare, but he only has 2 deserts, so maybe he has a Choking Sand in his deck. Puts down another Collector, resigns his 6/8 to death to that Assassin. Ranma also digging. I would guess for Soul Eaters. Ranma really needs to end this game before ES can get more damage. And he plays a Bloom Sprite. Just looking for more sacks, I think, and hoping to get something good on the death of such a creature. Yes, drawing, I would guess for Cypher's Wrath or Flameburst so that he can add on to that first Flameburst that he picked up. Unfortunately, not pulling any more removal. That Assassin is stalling the game well currently for Ranma. Yes, kind of forced to sit back and make difficult decisions. And he chooses to sacrifice the Ground Shaker. Puts down another burn creature. Keep in mind he has training in hand, so it's likely he's looking for a good trade in order to get 4 damage to face off of that brute. If he can do something like hit the 1/1, leave it at 3/5 and deal 2 damage, then even if he loses it on the next combat, he would still have done 4 damage. And he has Grimguard in hand and Flameburst as well, so I Things are on the edge here. Ranma opting for a value trade. And steps back. Ranma has his face well blocked right now, but Burn doesn't really care about that. It would certainly love to hit face, but as you can see there, it can deal damage directly to face, and doesn't need to hit it with creatures. In the current state, ES is probably considering Ranma to be at 4 health, saving the Flame Burst for face. It's not really needed for removal at this point. And with that 2 damage, he puts himself very close to a winning position. Ranma finally pulls a Soul Eater, but with so little health, it's going to take at least 2 turns to be effective, possibly 3. So we can see ES looking at lethal, and Ranma with, I don't see any way to avoid lethal. He would need something like a Soul Drain, but with that, ES wins. Ranma playing all his creatures, just hoping that ES doesn't have some way to kill him. But he does. And that's the end of game 1. Keep in mind, even if he hadn't had Flame Burst in hand, he had a Training in hand as well. Which means he could have moved his 2/5 up and killed the 1/1, which would have dealt 2 damage. And with Ranma currently having no removal in hand, he would have to top deck some kind of removal to avoid dying. So the Flame Burst really just accelerated the death by a turn. So let's go into game 2. Okay, here we are, game 2, Ranma versus ESofDawn. Garudan XIV Finals. ES currently up 1-0, the win using red-yellow burn. Ranma switching to blue jump. For those unaware, the rules of this tournament are that any player can play any deck throughout the entire tournament except the finals. Every game being a best of 1 except the finals. Finals being a best of 3 of the commonly used Pantheon format, where you bring 2 decks. And then you switch decks if you lose. ES opening with again a pretty standard. The Brute is in position to collect. Ranma opening with a more controversial yet still somewhat standard opening. Not everyone prefers to open double-toed, or Battletoads. But he does pull the double collect, and when it works out, it's quite good value. And you can see Ranma just setting up to collect. Just spreading himself all over the board. ES slowly making lands. Goal is 6 for him. 3 deserts, 3 mountains. Both players throwing some emotes back and forth. None of these emotes are actually relevant to the game in this particular situation. Yes. Preparing to use a desert, and he does. Has the option to step forward with the brute, or from our perspective, down. And it looks like he's considering Cypher. Okay. Quite a full turn from ES. Plays Cypher, hoping for a movement play, I would guess. You can see he has training in hand right now. And then also clearing a collector. More importantly, clearing a possible Aurora target, which could kill his Cypher. Big shout out to Yotsuba, who recorded these games for me. As you can see, he did accidentally hover that card for a little bit, made it hard to see part of the board, but I do appreciate him recording these for me. Frogify on the Cypher, pretty standard. Cypher is a strong candidate for most Frogified target. Yes, doesn't have much presence on the board. Looking to definitely take some back. Couple of ground shakers for AoE. And he uses some movement. Possibly he could use Gift of Steel. And he's hovering it now. And he does. This plays into Frogify, but since Ranma just used his Frogify, yes, is hoping that probability is on his side. And we can see that indeed Ranma doesn't currently have another Frogify. He does have Emperor's Command though, and he's hovering it. Yes, and he uses it. Makes the trade. He now has board control, but with fragile creatures. ES, no creatures. 1 over the minimum mana per turn. And he draws and passes. Ranma taking this opportunity to put a lake on both sides. Really opens up his options for attack, makes it difficult for ES to defend, especially with a burn deck, which is meant to be the aggressor, or I should say designed. However, Ranma does have no cards in hand, so it's a really strong question of what ES can do to take advantage of that. For now, he puts a beefy creature on the board, one that, as is, can't be killed, with Ranma only having 5 damage. However, he picks up Aurora. Now, despite that being a very strong pickup, ES still has another Ground Shaker in hand. Ranma dealing some more damage. And yes, ES does play the second Ground Shaker. I wouldn't say this makes him come back, but it's definitely put him in a strong position to do so. Ranma re-establishing board control. ES with Flashwind in hand. It's sort of blocked by the friends list and the settings icon, and he chooses to use it. While that's a very valuable trade for him, I feel this leaves him vulnerable. He now has only 3 mana, and Ranma has been double drawing since the time that he had no mana in hand. Looks like he's using Ninja Toad, just deciding the placement, and he opts to go maximum collection. This would allow him to triple collect next turn, if not cleared. ES with 6 mana. You could almost play a Spectre. Unfortunately, he's both 1 land short and 1 mana short. Being short on either of those would allow him to use the power wheel to get the other. And he opts to play the land. Ranma, double drawing again. Means if he wants to triple collect, he's going to need to use Prophet of Tides, and he doesn't. He just opts for a double collect. Yes, with 7 cards in hand. The maximum is 9 cards, so he has to start playing things soon. And he plays the Spectre. Dealing 8 to face definitely gives ES a chance in this matchup. Another Spectre, or a lack of Frogify from Ranma. Unfortunately, neither of those things are the case. Ranma puts down some pressure. A lot of pressure. I'd guess deciding between the heal and face damage. And I would also guess, looking at ES Varia, knowing that there's no way he can get 7, setting up lethal is probably the correct play. The taunt, in perfect position to deal lethal damage given the current board state. Unfortunately for ES, Ranma has Frogify in hand. And Ranma takes game 2. evening up the match to 1-1. Let's check out game 3. Okay, here we are. Game 3, Garudan XIV Finals. Ranma versus ESofDawn. Currently tied 1-1. It's a best of 3, so the winner of this match is the winner of Garudan Heart of the Mountain, number 14. ES, forced to switch out of his red-yellow burn, now moves into a mono green. A few emotes going back and forth. ES already knows Ranma's deck. Ranma, by tournament rules, is playing the same deck as the previous game. Center Lake is standard. It doesn't really reveal anything to ES. ES, however, opening with a forest to the side, reveals green, but threatens Crackthorn. Ranma, going with a very popular turn 2 water elemental, the only elemental that can place a land from the center tile and still collect on the next turn with no external help. ES opting for a double neutral. This probably signals to Ranma that he's running a mono green, because if he was running Crackthorn, he would be much more likely to take either another forest or mountain to get up to that desired 6. Both players dancing around each other. You can see a small spiral developing with their lands. ES, considering Horsemaster, gives his 3/4 charge 3, which would allow him to collect. Places another forest. And he goes for the collect. Both players now set up for a double collect, and opts to play the Verduran Force, most likely with the Grove Collar in mind, setting it up, getting rid of that what's typically called summoning sickness, hoping for a teleport play next turn to make some kind of value trade. Ranma considering double neutrals. He already has 3 lakes. Any additional lakes will be placed only for excuse me. I forgot about the 4 the 4 lake cost of library. So he does go double neutral, but then gains that 4th lake using an elemental. This puts him in a very aggressive position while also maintaining collection. ES has to make a tough decision. Defend or race. If he races, he can potentially use the taunt in a couple turns to give him an advantage. But Ranma also, with the Imperial airship, giving him some sustainability in a race as well. Ranma has already chosen to attack face. Most of his creatures positioned away from his orb, and ES opts to race. Ranma drawing a Beirut. Considering an additional lake. Not sure where he wants to put it. Hovering a few different positions. Currently looking at the forward position directly in front of ES orb. And he does take it. And he opts to go full face, as well as heal. The heal unfortunately increases the cost of radiance again, but I think Ranma is worried about a teleport play, giving ES some lethal. And we can even see in ES hand he has a Sagami. But he doesn't have a buff, so even without the heal he would have been one short of lethal, I believe. Oh, excuse me. He would have had lethal because of the library, so that heal was critical. Yes, very unsure, and I don't blame him. I do not envy this decision from him at all. Time is ticking though. Considering placing a taunt. 2, 1. He opts to teleport. Amazing. Last second. Leaves it until 1 second before he even plays a single, or even makes a single action, which was making that forest. And now I believe Ranma is looking at lethal. Yep. Just playing a few extra cards. Enjoying his victory. And that makes Ranma the champion of Garudan, Heart of the Mountain, number 14. Alright. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Let me know if there's anything else, or any other tournaments, excuse me, that you would like me to attempt casting. Let me know if there's any changes you'd like to see in the cast. I'm definitely working on my casting skills, and this is new to me, so constructive feedback is welcome. Thanks for watching.